The French Revolution, the Republic against the kingdom.
Say that again, Rocky. What part of the book of Revelation are we in?
Revelations 20, 7-9. Satan was released from his chains after the 1,000-year reign of Christ, which they're hiding. They're hiding the 1,000-year reign of Christ. I believe Jerusalem, the second temple, was destroyed, and the Revelations was a warning to those people. It was written before 70 AD, not after, like all the futurists say, oh, John wrote that after the trib. If he wrote it after the tribulation, then he would have said, well, something else. But he was warning the people to flee Jerusalem. 70 AD, Jerusalem was destroyed. After Jerusalem was destroyed, Rome was destroyed. 76 AD, the tribulation was over. Christ reigned for 1,000 years, which makes it 1076. There's evidence they added 700 years to our history, that all the apocalyptic events that happened between the 1st century and the 7th century in so-called history was made up.
Put a bookmark on that just for a second. I have a question for Michael really quick. Do you think that all religions are equally problematic, or is Islam especially dangerous?
Oh, cat guy's done.
Yes, I think all religions. Well, I wouldn't pretend to know all religions. I know the Abrahamics somewhat well. I would consider them all equally problematic. Yes.
Okay.
The chains,
Do you ever call out Jewish religious as zealously as Christian or Muslim?
I would not say as zealously. It's kind of a hard scale to measure. No, I'm kind of a Islamophobic specialist.
Right.
I have been on Christian channels. I have been.
Right. Yeah. And this is not like a big gotcha per se, or at least not in the way that I'm coming across. I'm trying to say, like, your religious beliefs, like in the Big Bang, for example, I mean, it directly comes out of the Kabbalah. You don't find that problematic at all, or?
I'm not familiar with the Kabbalah and evolution, but
well, if these concepts came out of something like the Kabbalah, would you rethink the fact that we find evidence for something that started out as a religious belief?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so
I thought evolution came out of Darwin.
Science will be their god. Science.
Darwin was a Jew.
Darwin was a Jew.
Well, hold on. But what if these beliefs in evolution and stuff like this, like there's theistic evolution as well, right? Like these things come out of religious belief. Science comes out of religious belief, right? So sometimes,
sure. So I mean, Einstein, I think, was a deist. I think he believed in a God, but he didn't believe God interacted, sent prophets or any of that stuff. And again. When I say I'm an atheist, it doesn't mean I believe in science. I believe everything scientists say. Scientists correct themselves. One of the beauties of science is they're open to the idea they may be wrong. One of the problems I find with the religious, especially the fanaticals, are they say we are truth, right? Haq. We are on the haq. That's what the Muslims say. We are on the truth. We know the truth. You guys. I mean, I don't know if The Machine Lies has ever read Al-Ghazali's The Incoherence of Philosophers. Cotton doesn't burn or fire doesn't burn the cotton. Allah burns the cotton. So they have all this fanatical belief in.
Hold on. But ultimately, you believe that the universe dictates all rules, right? Like there's a rule for the universe. There's a Big Bang. There's physics, metaphysics. I mean, So what's essentially, isn't it just different words for the same concept, or is it just a matter of semantics? Or
Yep. By the way, I have to clarify because I actually studied Incoherence of the Philosophers, right, within the university, at the university level. I had an Indian, actually agnostic, philosophy teacher. that was not actually very kind to Islam and all that type of stuff, right? Actually, he championed the belief, and opinions of Ghazali's competitors, especially those of Averroes,
Averroes,
right?
as
Yeah,
always.
yeah. But he still said that Hume basically reiterated Ghazali's argument on causality, right? Because the billiard balls example that relates to the atoms smashing into each other and those causing things, but there could be more minute causes in between those causes, right? Is basically Hume's argument, right? So it's the same exact argument with burning the cotton, right? But yeah. And that
Okay.
and that actually is an example of an argument that was basically stolen from religious apologetics, right? One that was then later adapted for a philosophical principle, right? Which is Hume's radical rejection of causality, within his radical empiricism, right?
Right. So, but within that concept, so fire is spreading, right? California wildfires are spreading. The fuel is there, the air is there, everything that physically needs to be present for fire to spread. Could it just stop spreading by the will of Allah? Or do you think that would happen?
Well, it's just a question of what causes the fire, right?
Right.
What do you think causes the fire?
Fuel, which underbrush, heat, oxygen.
Right, exactly. There's multiple causes. So the Buddhist makes the same argument, right? I could take out the Buddhist argument from from mutual dependence, right, and mutual mutual arising of various things that cause a certain event to happen, right. And whether you go to the Buddhist or you go to Hume, right, they're arguing in the same vein that you can't determine ultimate causality, right? Especially with things like fire, right? Because one could say it's the friction, it's the heat, it's the the brush, it's all of these different factors, right? And when one asks oneself, what is the fire, in and of itself, you could then pose a very intricate series of questions that then, question what the fire is in and of itself, right?
Well, the fire is a chemical reaction. I thought we all agreed on that. We don't?
No, like I said, Buddhists and Hume,
Okay.
They don't agree on that.
Okay. Well, it's interesting that you guys don't agree that fire is a chemical reaction. So, anyways, machine.
I'm talking about causality. Whether the chemical reaction causes the fire, that's a whole different question, right?
Right.
You're saying fire is a chemical reaction. So is it the chemicals?
As I remember, like 6th grade science, yes.
So is it the chemicals or the heat that cause a fire?
Well, you need heat to create the chemical reaction.
Exactly. See, this is the problem. What caused the fire?
But you don't need God to create heat.
I mean, if we don't know what causes a fire, just in the simple aspect of the material causes, I mean, we can't know anything deeper, I'd say.
Well, no, we know how to strike a match to create fire, sulfur and an emery board or whatever the thing is you strike a match against, a lighter that has friction with butane in it. We know what's flammable. We know how to create a flame out of what's flammable.
Let me read a passage from a Buddhist book.
Okay.
It says, just as, O monks, fire is named from the dependence on which it burns. The fire which burns in dependence on the log of woods is called log fire. The fire which burns in dependence on chips is called chip fire. The fire which burns in dependence on grass is called grass fire. The fire which burns on dependence on cow dung is called cow dung fire. The fire which burns in dependence on husk is called husk fire. The fire which burns in dependence on rubbish is called a rubbish fire. In exactly the same way, O monks, consciousness is named from that independence on which it comes into being. The consciousness which comes into being in respect of the color and shape and dependence on the eye is called eye consciousness. The consciousness which comes into being in respect of the sound is the dependence on the ear is called ear consciousness.
Okay.
So in quite the same way, they argue that the fire has no inherent nature.
Okay. Well, it's always funny whenever I say I'm an atheist, everybody wants to get into the creation of the universe and blah, 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 and all that. Maybe I should just start calling myself an anti-religious.
Well, because atheism makes metaphysical claims. That's the only reason why they do that.
Oh, my only claim is I don't believe in God. I've never read a book of atheism. I don't know what atheism claims.
But that is a metaphysical claim. So that's why people get into the nature.
Hang on, can you give me one good logical reason why you completely denounce a divine creator at all?
Because all the books that claim to know the creator don't make sense to me.
You just base it off of a book. Well, what if there were no books? Would you still do it?
I have no idea.
Try it, because I didn't need the Bible. I didn't need a religious experience to make me believe in a divine creator. I mean, come on, man.
Well, that's interesting, Lucifer.
you think he came out of a big bang and the random universe just created everything on Earth so randomly, but it's so perfect, right?
Oh, there's nothing perfect about it. The universe is horribly designed. That's another reason I don't believe in a creator.
Is it because man has to deal with the consequences of his actions? That's why.
Oh, not just the consequences of their actions. I mean, you have flesh-eating amoebas. You have, meningitis.
Well, yeah, because at one time the Earth was perfect and everything on it was perfect, and we screwed up. How is that hard to understand? But you came from the monkey man, right?
Yes.
That makes sense. So your great grandpappy Neanderthal was out there in the caves making dung paintings, beating themselves in the heads with rocks every time they got a toothache or a headache, right? But we came from that.
It goes a little farther than my grandpappy, but you're hilarious, dude. I love it. Keep talking.
What's next? Aliens crash landed here millions of years ago and got stuck in Antarctic ice.
I tell you what, the ancient alien theorists actually have better theories than the Abrahamics, in my opinion.
Yeah. Okay. Well, sign him up for the mark. Get him ready.
Put the mark on my forehead and my forehand and my forehead. 666, the mark of the beast.
Let's get this man an application. His God is science. That's exactly who we want. Elon Musk, are you listening?
That'd be awesome. I'm waiting for your Jesus to return, along with the Mahdi. So Lucifer, your name is Lucifer, but you're some sort of Christian, Jew, Muslim.
I don't use earthly terms, bruh.
Oh, okay. Welcome to the masquerade. But you're not a disciple of the beast as the name Lucifer?
No, I don't hate Lucifer, so I don't fear his name. What is this? What is he? Voldemort, he who must not be named?
I think that's from the Harry Potter books or something.
Yes, sir.
Iblis is what he's called in Islam. He's a jinn, not a fallen angel.
Oh. Oh, no, I've never met one.
Well,
But I've never met a Neanderthal either. Speaking of that, why aren't they still walking around? Where's the evolutionary jump? Where's the evidence that we came from, monkey man?
Yeah, well, actually, many people have 2 to 6%.
A bunch of people, dug up some bones and claimed that they were man, right? Like with the dinosaurs.
Well, actually, Neanderthal DNA is found in many humans.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Because the computer told you, right? So you trust the computer.
I'm not sure how they test DNA.
You won't trust a book, but you'll trust a computer. Right. Okay. Make that logical sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, they take little vials and they drop them in a whole bunch of things. And so you don't think they've done DNA? You don't believe in DNA testing?
I believe just like with carbon dating, it's bullshit. I don't think you can sit there and tell me.
You're like a Dr. Dino guy, huh?
Yeah, that's right. Dr. Grant, you should come take a look at this. Oh, look, it's a big pile of shit.
Right. Carbon dating's not real. The whole fossil record was all mixed up by the Great Flood.
Let me go take a shit and box it up for you. And if you can tell me that shit is 2 days old and I actually took it 2 days ago, I might trust that computer.
Yeah, they can. They can
But,
actually.
I mean, I can usually tell how old poop is, based on the rate of fossilization or decay. Anyway, I don't need a computer to tell me that. Just like, you don't need mudslides or landslides that happen over millions of years. They can happen within hours or days.
Okay, so how old do you think the Earth is?
I'm not sure. Were you here at the beginning? Neither was I. I don't make claims about things that I wasn't here to witness myself.
Oh, okay. So you don't believe like the Revolutionary War existed or
Well, I
happened?
mean, there's historical evidence of that, but whether or not it was legit, that's completely different. Just like every other war, just like they said about World War I, right? The war to end all wars. Well, we're still warring.
Yeah, they've made many mistakes about the wars to end all wars and the weapons that would end all wars. I mean, that's what Nobel thought he would end wars. Gatling,
Well, I don't know.
the Gatling gun thought he would end wars.
Their new Andor series is all about rape and Germans. So I don't know. Go ask them. You're the one who believes that your universe was contained to the size of a pinprick and exploded, and it's so random that everything just happens to fit perfectly. You just happen to be the right distance from the sun to not cook or freeze. But that's random, right?
Yeah, well, there's trillions of planets.
Because NASA told you to. Did
there's
this
trillions of planets.
Indoctrination teach you?
Okay.
I mean, it just sounds like to me, sir, you don't have no critical thinking for yourself, and you just swallow up whatever indoctrinational MK Ultra gay ops they can come up with.
You let me know when I can talk.
Did we go to the moon?
Maybe if you said something intelligent, but I mean, so far all I've heard is I came from Monkey Man. Well, sir, if you came from a Monkey Man, why should I observe anything you say? You're nothing but a ee ooh ooh ah ah. So, I mean.
Can I talk now?
Okay, say it. Sorry.
Okay, that's awesome that your big debate is personal attacks. I went to the University of Florida for a hot minute there in 1988. Okay, interrupt me again.
Wow, you went to a school of man. Am I supposed to applaud you?
Absolutely not. I was trying to finish a sentence, but you won't let me talk. You're a fucking moron, dude.
Because I'm still waiting for one good evidence on why I should disregard any God I believe in and put my faith in nothing.
Hey, Machine Lives, I'm perfectly willing to talk to you. This asshole, I don't want to engage with anymore.
Hey, Mike.
You don't want to be part of the New World Order?
Well, in that case, I think I'll just move on to my presentation. But yeah, it's been a good interim here. Blessings to all you guys. Thank you guys for but yeah, there is some critical issues here about Zionism and different things that they're going over here. Maybe we'll, because I think how many more minutes? I think there's still about 20 more minutes of this, and then I have some other readings and things that I'd like to get to. And so maybe I'll just go along with that. And then of course, freely react to this content here. There's lots of religious issues here. Let's see what happens. We'll throw something else into the stew here.
Listen. She understands fine. She understands fine. She knows what I'm saying is true. She doesn't care.
Yeah.
And so why care back? Like, why shouldn't I just run a big ass fucking?
So I don't know if you're familiar with this whole debacle, but this is from Apostate Prophet. Are you familiar with that content creator, Mike?
Yes, I know the Apostate Prophet.
Apostate.
He's a Turk from Germany. I think living in the U.S. now. I think he's become a Christian along with David Wood. Right.
So he's recently become a Christian, and he joined the Orthodox Church, right? And now he's debating these fellas, right? He's part of the ecumenical patriarchy, and I believe that Wilson is in the either the Antiochian or the Greek, but anyways, they're in communion with the ecumenical patriarchy, right? So they're essentially in the same church, right? Acknowledged, right? So their churches acknowledge each other just fine, but they had a debate on Zionism. Were you able to view this debate?
No. So he's in the Eastern Orthodox Church, is what you're saying?
Yeah. Yes, Andrew Wilson versus apostate prophet. The debate was on Modern Day Debate, and they had a pretty huge fallout after the debate. And his wife is accusing them of being Nazis. You know, so she's in the chat accusing them of being Nazis, and they're cowering and also insulting her and saying she should shut her mouth and get out of the chat and stop saying things like that because it's tactics to get people deplatformed.
Right. Yeah, I haven't watched much APUS, as he's called by like Mohammed Hijab and the other Dawa guys, but him and David Wood, I think, are morons.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, they're having a field day with Muhammad Hijab. I think Muhammad Hijab's not too. I think he gets way too much credit. I think he's not very talented, but I think he gets put up too high and sort of billed as, you know, the main apologetics guy. But you know, he's more like a kind of a grifter, like this Andrew Wilson guy. You know, so I don't know if people should actually take him seriously. As for their theology, highly suspicious, right? They're part of a number of organizations that promote Salafi views or whatever. So they're kind of in a kind of a strange part of strange religious groups in England as well that are worth investigating, right? So I haven't personally looked into it, but yeah, they've had several.
Might be some
I would say very
petro-Islam going on there, huh? The Saudis, oil money.
Exactly.
Campaign to just mass report AP's channel and David Woods. Just send thousands upon thousands of people over to mass report them for misinformation about what they said about me. I could do that.
Oh, so there he is threatening mass reporting on AP and David Woods' channel. In case they get out of line. Right? And he's saying he has the ability to mass report channels if they call him Nazi or they try to support rhetoric that supports deplatforming them, right?
Too. Would you cry foul? I think you should. If somebody ran that kind of campaign, I think you'd be like, well.
By the way, what's really weird is that day that Andrew Wilson actually came on the show, The Machine Lies, you know, and I called him a Elon Musk supporter, and he asked me if I think Elon Musk is a Nazi, and I asked him why he's defending Elon Musk, right? And essentially, he didn't give me clear answers there. But right after he got off the stage, something weird happened. One of our videos got struck down. That's pretty weird. But yeah, now he's threatening AP and David Wood with that. It's pretty interesting, right? And I'm not accusing anybody of anything, but it's just interesting that he would say that.
You know, you're attempting to silence and deplatform and this and that, right?
Mm-hmm.
As well, you should think that. So don't think for a second.
Right. So if people try to silence and deplatform you, the only choice is you mass report and silence and deplatform them. It's the only choice. Right. That's a solution to that. Right. So we heard it there.
Though, that by you trying to use the rhetoric and put us in categorization of politically disenfranchised, that you're not trying to politically disenfranchise us, because otherwise you wouldn't put us in that category. You fucking dolt. You fucking idiot.
Yeah, stop being a liar. Stop pretending that coming into someone's chat. I remember exactly the chat that you said. You said, "Are you reading the Talmud with your groypers?" Like that's what is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? Keep your mouth shut. Okay?
It's part
Are you reading the Talmud with your groypers? Who told him that? That's hilarious. That's too funny. Yeah.
Disenfranchisement. And so if you try to move towards political disenfranchisement for people, you're trying to fucking deplatform them. That's what that means. You wouldn't put us in a villainization category of the politically disenfranchised unless you wanted us to be politically disenfranchised. Why else would you do it?
That's like when someone tags your writes your location, right? Your house location, and be like, "What? It has nothing to do with other people knowing where you are who don't like you. I don't know. It's just your address.
I didn't do it.
I don't play dumb. You know, I'm just.
I didn't do it. Look, you're the fuckers. You're the fuckers who want to go hard. Yeah, Andrew's a big boy. He can take it. It's like you can fucking take it too. So you wanted this. You wanted to fucking go hard.
By the way, they accused me of impersonating somebody who actually doxed us here. Right? So they accused me of impersonating. They know full well that this person looked up my information and all that stuff. And now they're acting like it's right. Like it'd be totally bad for somebody to do that to somebody. Right? They don't actually care if that happens to somebody. Right? They really don't.
Want to fucking play this game? We'll play this game. You want to disenfranchise me? Then it's like I have no qualms hitting back on that. None, zero.
We have more questions here. Must we support any country as Christians? If Turkey, Muslim, invades Greece, historical heart of Orthodoxy, must we support from a moral standpoint? That's a good. I have no answers to that question. I'm going to let Andrew try to answer it if he wants.
Yeah, well, I mean, it would be contextually important to understand what's going on, right? So it's context dependent, just like all moral claims are going to be contextually dependent. Right now, there's an even better question to this is like, there's two Orthodox countries fighting, which is Russia and Ukraine, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is two nations.
Right.
So contextually, you're going to have to make some determinations outside of just Orthodoxy, right? Because are they fighting over religious reasons would be the a good purpose for question, or political reasons? That would be a good question. The Orthodox Church takes the stance that two Orthodox nations go to war. That is the responsibility of Orthodox those nations to follow the political establishment, because how else could they do it?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, what about if you belong to a church, right, and the ecumenical patriarchy supports the Zionists? Okay, and the Moscow patriarchy supports Putin. He's in line with the Zionists, right? So what faction of your church is actually anti-Zionist? Right? So let's get to the real issue. Right? We're not talking about Ukraine versus Russia. Right? It seems to be pretty cut and dry here, right?
And also, Andrew, that would be we would be appealing to an authority bigger than us. There would be discussions on that, right? So that's a whole system, right? Vincent asks for $20. Another one is what's happening in the West with open borders, Muslim immigration, and takeover of politics to install Sharia. I don't know if that's happening here, but an overrepresentation of bagel in politics. Maybe it's another form of fighting. Well, there's always been fighting from that element as opposed to like just guns, what you think fighting is. There's always been.
He won't say the real truth, right? A lot of times the multicultural element, right? The people that are pushing for multiculturalism and immigration because they're the greatest maligned minority group in history are the Jays, right? They push for immigration inside all these different countries, right? Then when the Muslims come in and all the white people say, we don't want the Muslims to be here, right? They say the white people are racist. I mean, let's be honest. This is exactly what's happening. Right, but they don't want to call out the problem, right? That they're bringing these people into the country on purpose that aren't culturally assimilated into the Western culture to disrupt the political framework of those countries. Okay.
Yeah,
it's being done on
immigration
purpose.
war.
Yeah, it's being done on purpose by the global government, the globalists. There's a bunch of corporations that are doing it. There's corporations that are pushing it. Okay, there's Zionists that are pushing it. Okay, they want closed borders inside Israel, but they want open borders everywhere else.
Yeah.
So, some form of using immigration and other things, importing ideologies. Jay does a lot of work on the 60s, the revolution, sexual revolution, the drug revolution, and all of this stuff is always could be used as warfare. What do you think, Andrew?
Could be used, might have been used. They were used. Look at the MK Ultra.
I just wanted to say, like the movie World War Z, when dude goes to Israel, whatever. It's like he says when they build the wall for the zombies, first to know, first to act.
Yeah, the COINTELPRO MK Ultra stuff is public knowledge at this point. Come on, dude. It's not might have been. It's not could have been. It was. It was used.
It's the Illuminati.
Why is he so confused about this all of a sudden? Pretty weird.
In 1776, created the Illuminati.
Right.
Well, hang on. Restate the question. I want to make sure I understand.
Another one is what's happening in the West with open border Muslim immigration and taking over politics to install Sharia over representation of bagels in politics. Maybe it's another form of fighting.
You betcha it is. That's exactly what's causing the issue. And that blue-haired lady going and charging the Muslim the nice young Muslim girl with and saying it's the colonialists' fault. Well, who are the colonialists? Right? When the Marxists blame the quote-unquote colonialists, okay, who are they actually blaming? All right, they're blaming modern, Western, European civilization, which they were a part of, but they get off scot-free. They get to have their cake and eat it too.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, yeah, okay, yeah. So you're talking about a soft invasion.
yeah,
because
like
they get to choose when they're white and when they're not white. When they're European
Yeah,
and when they're not European. They're the only group in the world, as that blue-haired lady said, that has a nation. And I'm in an ancient kingdom. The only nation on earth, she said.
Rules for thee, not for me.
Using the political established laws for soft invasion. Well, that's been going on in all Western nations, especially from Muslims. That's been a big deal for Muslims.
yeah.
So, I mean, that's how they do it. It's harder to make the case for like
name one Western society that Muslims have been able to take over with immigration.
Well, they conquered Spain for a little while, not for very long.
Not with immigration.
Well, I mean, they had to go up and they raided into it, but yeah, so far, I mean, immigration.
Nope. That's wrong again. Actually, they were invited in. By who?
You're Frederick II or something, you're going to say?
Again, yeah, because they were being invaded by who? The Visigoths.
Well, they were Visigoths in Spain. I thought he raped his buddy's daughter or something.
We got to say grape here, but yeah.
Oh, sorry.
But yeah, the whole thing is about the Visigoth kings, right? The Jews and all the other people. They brought the Muslims in as mercenaries, and
Right.
when the Muslims came in, they said we're staying.
Yeah,
Oh.
they didn't get much pushback, and they went way up. But then the Visigoths did start pushing back, and they were relegated to Granada for the last 250 years or something.
Yeah, so
But
they were
anyways,
brought in. So they were literally
the
brought
idea
in
of mass immigration. People couldn't move very easily around the world until obviously automobiles and trains and now planes. So there's never been a huge mass migration until the last 100 years.
But yet there's, gigantic buildings that are, can't even be replicated in today's time with our technology, but we couldn't move around, right? Because all we had was horses.
Well, we could move around. People just didn't take the long treks to do it very, very often. And there was no way of knowing where you were moving to was that much better than where you're at. Nowadays, you can see where fertile land is and where economies are booming, where the first world is, the industrialized world versus the developing world versus the third world.
If you try to tell these conservatives that all of these social issues are actually caused by the impact of technology, right? They'll cope and seed and say, no, this technology is brought in by human ingenuity and all this. They fail to see the issue of how the technology transforms culture and society, right? So they simply cope and they say, oh, well, we could guide the technology and the culture to make it be benevolent, and it's just some type of weird fantasy that they have that they're going to become some kind of Christian technological utopia, right? You know what I mean? And it's simply a dastardly plot. I mean, to say the least about it. Right?
Okay. Well, I'm a little confused. I'll be honest with you. We were talking about immigration, and now you're talking about technology. And actually,
well, no. You mentioned technology because you said it's because of planes and all this stuff. It wouldn't have been made possible without all of that stuff. So I'm saying,
yes.
So my rebuttal is that the conservatives, right? They're not going to say, well, let's fix these social problems by getting rid of the technology. That's impossible for them, right? What they'll instead say is they'll cope and say, well, we need to transform the society, not the technology. Right, so the society works in line with the technology, but they fail to see the psychological and social impact of the technology itself. You know that the effect it has on culture is simply irreversible. Right? You know, so they
Okay. So you want to end the technology of transportation that allows people to move around the world easily and
no. I'm just saying that technology that allows people to transport and move around is responsible for multiculturalism, right?
Sure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Just as you were saying, right? And I'm saying that to a certain extent, if we don't get rid of the technology, we won't get rid of the multiculturalism.
Well, but we can control immigration. I mean, it's something that can be easily regulated. Like tomorrow I'm flying to Germany. I'm not going to stay in Germany. I'm going to come back after 2 weeks. I'm a tourist. You know, we have trains, planes, automobiles, ships, all those things. It doesn't mean when someone comes to a country, they get to stay there. If you actually have immigration laws and you kick your tourists out, because that's the definition of a tourist, if you don't allow low-wage people to come into your country,
unless you have a way to surveil everybody, right? It'd be hard to figure out if somebody comes from another country, right, to visit here, right? If they just stay right here illegally,
sure,
right? It'd be pretty hard to trace them, just practically speaking, right? But you know, unless they have a lot of, you know, I guess practically surveillance on everybody. Right. And they could manage such a thing, but they still have to go through the physical files, right, in order to find who said what, when, you know, and all of that stuff. So
right, but I mean, you got e-verify when someone goes to get a job. I mean, there's no reason to stay here if you can't work and make money, right? So again, you have e-verify, which, you know, my brother one time, he used to import lighting fixtures from Europe and China and stuff, and he had a woman who worked for him, and she stole his social security number.
Here's one solution. Here's one good way to do it. Okay, is if you use racial profiling. Then you can very easily manage who comes in and out. You know, right? See, in Israel they use racial profiling, so their immigration policy is very effective, right? Over here, where everybody will throw up their arms if you say something like so. See, this is the inherent problem, right?
Right.
But yeah.
But of course, you get.
You can't have effective policy. I mean, without A, technology, and B, controlling racial profiling. You know, so you know, you can't even make sensible decision on the issue.
You can still get Europeans who sneak in. I used to know a guy who was from Germany, and he was a dishwasher. He worked for his cousin under the table for 50 years, and he was always complaining he can't go back to Germany because dad was sick. Can't see him. I might not get back in the country. You know, he's been an illegal immigrant for 50 years.
Yeah.
You know, some kind of Jewish invasion, the same way it is Muslim invasion, because there's just not that many Jews, right? They're very small representation subset.
Yeah, but the Jews are overrepresented in the politics. He's never once mentioned that. I mean,
world's population.
Dual
So
citizenship.
it's a harder case to make. You can say, well, disproportionately represented in politics. It's like, well, but so are the Irish.
Honestly,
you know,
Andrew.
Oh, so he did say it, but then he said, it doesn't really matter that much.
Yeah,
so were the Irish? Yeah, the Irish have as much power as the Jews in this country. Come on, let's be honest here. All right, the Irish do not have political organizations that'll ban you for talking about Irish people. That's impossible.
Yeah.
But the
Also
other
just
part is if
You know, I mean,
I think he might have been thinking like that the Irish, one of the things the Irish figured out pretty quickly was to get into politics and to get into the police forces, right? In New York City and Boston, they're notoriously the cops were all Irish. So they kind of like, the English hated them, you know, Irish need not apply. So one of the things they said, well, how can we get power? Well, let's join the police forces. Let's get into politics a little bit and stuff.
yeah. And then they joined with the Polish people, and they got the donuts, you know. So they had the right. So yeah.
if Christians took more positions in politics, and it happened to be the case that they were underrepresented or something, it was a disproportionate representation, I would still be like, fine. I'd be like, good. We need more.
Yeah, I'm okay
like,
with that.
You know what I mean? So
yeah, if Christians disproportionately at 90%, that makes sense, right? I'm like,
yeah.
great. I want them to disproportionately represent the
Yeah.
worldview that I have. Yeah, I mean, it does make sense.
Yeah.
And that's supposed to be how representative democracies work anyhow. So you can't really even complain when it happens back to you, because when it's happening on your behalf, you love it, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah. You gotta agree to the terms of the warfare. And in this case, as Andrew said, soft war. Black Flame Nova says for $20, thank you for
Soft war is a cope. Okay. You know, politics is the entertainment division of the military-industrial complex.
Yeah.
Okay. Politics is war without blood. War is politics with blood. And to quote Mao Zedong,
Politics.
this soft power shit is a delusion. Right? Yeah, go ahead.
Politics is poly, which means many. Ticks, blood-sucking parasites. Polyticks.
Yeah.
Many blood-sucking parasites.
Right.
For that.
Yeah.
I thought that when they chose to crucify Christ, they said that they'd have blood on their hands and future generations' hands. Didn't this make some kind of curse or something?
They didn't say that. It's the Gospels that say that. What do you like? It's the Gospels that blame them for murdering God. It's not they that what
Yeah, that's why the state of Israel was divorced by God, because they rejected their Messiah as a state. That's why there should be no more Zionism, because God destroyed it 70 AD. It shouldn't be around no more. It was replaced by the church. These guys don't even know what they're talking about.
I don't know about a curse. I don't think that's theologically based. No, that's not a. I mean, that's like. I mean, maybe Mormons think. I don't know. Mormons are pretty. I'm pretty obsessed with Mormonism, Andrew, lately. Just like looking at what they believe, I'm like, wow. Some of it's pretty crazy. Does her husband know?
It's a really fun ride, you know.
Yeah,
the Mormon thing.
Yeah, that's why it's like I asked Jay this. It's like we debate, you know, this you debate the sewing circle, and there's this kind of like ongoing debate with people who claim to be Christian, and Mormons are just kind of left out. they're like the water boy in the game. You're like, well, we don't even acknowledge you in the debates. There's just kind of a funny quirk about online just apologetics in general. It's kind of left out.
Yeah, but in some ways the Mormons are real fucking smart, right? Because they have been able to take over multiple states, and their churches have been able to take over multiple states without ever engaging really in any public discourse whatsoever.
Yeah.
This is a good,
this is a good question. I think Andrew had one moment in the debate where he made this distinction. Even if Paul, in this case, not this example exactly, but even if Paul did say the Jews have a blessing from the patriarchs, it doesn't follow that we ought to support Jewish Antichrist state. Yeah, the state versus this is what Andrew was trying to decipher from AP is what is he actually, who and what is he actually saying needs the help? Is it a lineage? Is it a
Right.
place? Is it a culture? Is it secularism? What is it?
False. He said the secular Jews pay for the religious Jews. They pay for a messianic organization. So to support the secular Jews is to support Antichrist. This is what he said during the debate. And now he's wondering if it's an anathema to support them.
And I don't think we ever got there, did we? But you could answer that.
No, because, well, and this is correct. Again, it doesn't demonstrate the ought claim for why we should send to a state which is supporting the uplifting of the naming of a false Messiah, right? Why ought we do that? And then he'll switch over to be, well, because it's a secular state. And then you say, well, okay, then why should we support a secular state? And it'd be like, well, because Paul says they have magic Jew blood. And it's like, well, that's not secular again, though. Now we're back into, you know, is something completely different. Now we're back into the religious paradigm. And it's like, no, we're back to the secular paradigm. And it's just like, man, you got to make up your fucking mind.
Yeah,
Which is make up your mind here about what it is we're doing. Yeah, what is it that we're actually doing here and supporting?
Yeah, just like you went there to debate a political Zionism, and you went there and said the guy's supporting Antichrist and turned it into a theological issue. And then when he recanted with the words of St. Paul from 9 through 11, you didn't even refute him. Right? Saying that the Christians are grafted into a new branch. Right? When the root had been cut. And they're going to be grafted into a new tree. Right? So they totally misinterpreted Paul. He never called him out on it. Right?
Yeah, I don't see that any obligation for Christians to support a Jewish state or a Muslim state for that matter, or any state for that matter.
That's a false dialectic again. It's not Jews versus Muslims. It's Jews versus Arabs. And the Jews are not religious Jews. Okay, they're supported by a huge number of Christians. Right? So again, he's not getting the facts straight. And what about the Christian Arabs and the Ethiopian Jews and other such class of people that Israel has discriminated against and classified as second-class citizens? Should they just be wiped from existence? Is that just fine?
Yeah, Machine Lies. I don't know. Did you ever see, there was an article, it might have been 10 years ago now, but it was Palestinian Christians who the Jews came in and wiped out this guy's apple orchard.
They've gone from 10% to 1% of the population.
Yeah, I think it was an apple orchard, and he literally had his papers from like his grandfathers from the Ottomans in the 1880s or something, showing deed to the property. And the Muslims just came in, or the Jews came in and bulldozed the whole thing down.
That's right.
I'll see if I can find out. Link it.
Yeah, incredible discrimination of the Christian Arabs and of the Ethiopian Jews, as we saw. They gave birth control without the consent to many, many Ethiopian women to force them to be infertile.
Yeah, well, that's weird.
Didn't
they airlift a bunch of the Ethiopians to Israel in the 70s? Wasn't that called like Operation Solomon or something?
Yeah, they talked about that too. But then when they got there, they treated them pretty badly, and then they also forcibly
sterilized them and stuff.
Yeah, they forcibly sterilized Ethiopian women that were trying to immigrate to the country.
Yeah, we did that to a lot of Native American women in America. And
they did that to a lot of black communities too during the eugenics agenda in the in the mid 1900s.
Sanger.
Yeah, exactly.
To tell them that they have to support Muslims or that they have to support Jews or Hindus or
what if there's just a bunch of dirty Burning Man yogi people, right? And we're like, and they just were just hedonistic and terrible. It's like, could they use our help in this thing you're calling a conflict? Sure. The same question stands. And I think what you're pointing to, Andrew, is that the only position he could defend, to try to defend, at least attempt to defend, would be a theological, a Christian perspective, to try to say the ought. Otherwise, everything is just measured against some other pragmatic proposition for another country. I like to use Japan because it's ethnocentric similarly, and its culture is almost indistinguishable from the country itself. Its identity is all wrapped up in one thing, and so they don't talk much about that when you bring up Japan. So let's say Japan, do they have the right? This is another thing, Andrew, that maybe in these future debates about this is distinguished, because you do it often in other debates, is the distinction whether someone has the right to defend themselves versus whether they're capable of defending themselves. And then third, whether they have a right to other people's resources to defend themselves. Three different questions, yet they're all sort of parallel or sort of bundled in. And this concept of the right to defend yourself is kind of silly, because how does that involve me if you have the right to defend yourself? Okay, cool.
Yeah, don't mention the fact that they occupied people that were already there. Right? It's clearly not self-defense at that level. Right? Why
neighbor has the right to defend himself? Does he have the capacity? Maybe. We'll see. But that doesn't mean I get to camp out in his yard and defend him for him, or I should.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure that there's going to be future debates on this unless I get a very specific prompt where somebody has to actually tie themselves to a position. They have to actually tie themselves to it. Like, let's get very specific. What does this mean? What does this mean? What does this mean before the debate? And then they give the agreement. Otherwise, there's no point, because it's like a tube of toothpaste. You squeeze here, they move there. You squeeze here, they move there. You can't get specific. I don't even see any case use in it at all, because Christ, and your answer to that is yes. It's supposed to take that exact enough.
Much again from AP side.
Yeah, I'm going to see if there's anything else here, but Cope.
Well, I was looking for some on Amazon. Andrew, another question I have is, like, if someone approached this debate again from AP side, what if they said this? What if there was an agreement, an arrangement, and so it was a part of a type of a contract, and the question was, if the contract, even if you disagree with the terms, the contract was in place that we help Zionism in exchange for X or something like that. And the contract, the question of, should we fulfill the contract? Let's say it was a 50-year contract or something.
Yeah. Another nonsensical question.
Immoral the contract needs like not worth the.
Yeah. Morality, really. What's informing these agreements? What's informing an ally? What's an ally? An ally to what? Well, Dr. Herb.
The case, but if that's the case, then the most pragmatic argument that you could make is, then we can take all 10 million Jews who live in Israel, move them into the United States, then they would be working for our companies anyway with various technology.
Yeah, that is one argument he made that was very interesting. He actually gave the guy the option, right? He said that, imagine if we took the Jews out of Israel, that would be defending them. Because they would no longer be they would no longer be in a mortal conflict, right? So he gives this hypothetical situation, which is obviously impossible, right? They're not going to leave, right? It's too late in the conflict to make that kind of proposal, right?
Right. But not to interrupt you, but I don't know if you're old enough to remember Dick Armey, when he was in Congress. That was one of his proposals. It's still kind of a proposal, but it's the opposite. It's, let's move the Palestinians into Egypt, into Jordan, and I think Gaza probably had less than 1 million people back then. It was in the late 80s, early 90s. But that was one of the arguments was, well, let's just create an Israeli state by moving, the Arabs out, the Muslims, the Christians, and give the whole land to the Jews. So I think this guy did a good flip the script here. Well, why don't we just move the Jews out?
Right.
Why not give them Arizona?
Right,
if you want,
right.
you
So
know,
I like, yeah. So I like this argument that he made. I will say that I like that argument. So after trashing them for 4 hours, I mean, right. Minus the conversation that Mike and Rocky had. I mean, right. I'll say that. I'll throw them that one bone there. I mean,
Yeah.
And it's
Vincent.
like, well, I'm not so sure about that. So
yeah, the pragmatism falls apart pretty quick. Vincent DeVecchia says, for 10, in the Bible, God mentions the promised people, and that includes those who believe in Christ and also Israel and give their land back. Is this contradictory?
No, we're the children. We're the children of the promise, and the church is Israel. So
yeah,
like this. By the way, you can just go look. You can actually Google this, right? Who is Israel Orthodox Christianity?
Right.
And you can view the view for yourself. They go through the entire thing, passage by passage by passage.
Right. Yeah, Vincent, your question kind of argue.
yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah. The problem is that your clergy there doesn't agree. When the Moscow Patriarchy, right, that's in line with Putin, right, and the Ecumenical Patriarchy, right, where they're going to synagogues to speak, right? So they're clearly not, of the same view, right? Or they have different interpretation of what that means, right? That the church is Israel.
Kind of asks from a non-Orthodox position because you're distinguishing like Christ's church and Israel is this other thing, and that's the contention.
It's a word concept fallacy.
That's why the debate happened. Basically, is like not only is it an important topic to unravel, but it was two positions that are ultimately orthodox.
Yeah, you can't label something that already exists something else and say, "Oh, that solves the problem." That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
One arguing from ultimately a non-Orthodox position, really, and then Andrew arguing from what it actually means to be Christian and that they're incompatible. Austin, $2. Give them Utah, and they could live with the Mormons. Yeah, you can give them Utah.
Okay, is he gone?
They are good.
That's it. But let's just be super charitable and say it's 10.5. I did see a report today that it's reaching above 10 million finally, right? Well, 10 million people in a world of 7 billion. If you were to, move them to different nations in the West, would barely be an uptick in the Western population. It would barely even put a dent in Western population from an immigration standpoint.
Right.
And then don't you get all those same protections that you wanted? So the question becomes, again, it always starts with why does there need to be a Jewish ethno state to protect Jews?
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Yeah, it's like you have to pervert the view to be able to argue for it. Like Vlad,
all 100% false. All those religions are incorrect, and there is no God. Let's just grant that for a second, right? And move it to a purely secular, pragmatic view, right? Why, from a secular, pragmatic view, does it make the most sense to have a Jewish ethno-religious state in the middle of a desert surrounded by enemies, if the argument is that we need to be protecting Jews, the people group?
Because it could.
Yep.
Right. France, you take 500,000. Germany takes 300,000. England takes.
Yeah. The questions he needs to be asking is then why did the British, right, establish it then? Right. Why did the British people establish? Why did they feel the need?
Plan from the beginning, no? Like this plan for Israel started in the late 1800s. It was already drafted before World War I and World War II. And it had to do with the Bolshevik Revolution. I mean, this is going back.
Right, it'd be some shit
to the slaughter of 60 million Russians.
Find out that all the world wars and all the players in it, which is used by the you-know-who's to just get everything set up for now.
Yeah, exactly, guys.
200,000. You know what I mean? And
Why are they playing so dumb,
United
Machine?
States takes $1 million.
Oh man, this is actually the dumbest. And actually, he took this down, and I think it's because they took such a lukewarm view on this particular issue, and their people fried them for it. I mean, I'm pretty sure that their people fried them for it. They were like, "No, we can't be this conciliatory." I mean, and yeah,
Whatever. We take $1 million a year in immigrants anyway.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? You just fulfill the quota in a single year.
Yeah. Yeah, that means,
What's
Andrew,
the-
that
I mean,
there's
what-
more
if-
that there's more baked in to what the ought claim is, because you're right. Like, let's say I like Japan. You take Japanese people. Let's say they were like, you know, in some sort of stressful environment, or they felt they were they needed to be protected. You could hypothetically make a domed Japan, right, and just move them into a domed Japan, you know, perfect simulation of Japan or something like this. If they said no, there's more to
Rubbish.
this, right? Well, then what you're pointing to needs an argument. Like, you need to bind
it's worse.
the people
It's worse
to the.
because think about it this way, and this is the argument I presented, and this is why this is so stupid. Okay, the argument goes like this: why does there need to be a Jewish ethno-state? Right? Answer: to protect Jews.
Mhm.
Okay, but we could easily protect Jews by moving them outside of a Jewish ethno-state. In fact, it would be a lot easier to do so.
Mhm.
No, we can't do that because of the fact that Jews would then be subject to genocide like they were in the Holocaust.
Mhm.
It's like, oh, are Jews subject to genocide right now, under threat of genocide right now? Yes. To prevent you from being genocided, we need to protect you in a.
We have to support, move them out of.
If we did.
Well, also, Andrew, they rejected when I presented that argument to them last night. Both of them, they rejected premise 2. They said no, they're not in a position where if you don't do something, they all go bye-bye. They're basically
Logical arguments here on their behalf. There's not good logic. There's just not. And so that's why I was like, well, so
yeah. James Marone, another $5. Meister Gaming, $5. Jim Bob, thanks.
Meaning that on some level you dislike being around.
Be in the vulnerable rhetoric. I think that's an.
yeah, that's it. More intellectual, nonsense, meta-ethical garbage, hypothetical situations. Nothing about historical, political, theological aspects of Zionism. Right? Totally bereft of any of that, right? Totally hollow explanations, and then too afraid to even keep it up, cowering beneath the claim that they'll actually be deplatformed. Right? And afraid to say exactly what's on their minds. That's pretty much it. Yeah. But yeah, I'm gonna move to some critical readings, and then I'm going to end the show. If the people on the panel want to stick around for that, it's up to you guys. I mean,
You have a good night, Machine Lies.
yeah, blessings, Mike.
Nice
Yeah,
to talk to you again.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, blessings.
Take it easy.
And I'm very, very afraid to say that I'm gonna have to extend this to an 8th episode. It's already 6:21. It took so long just to cover that one interview, but it's part of a critical series of the debate and post-debate responses. Right, and since that was the main push behind this entire series of shows that we did, right? That's available here on this channel, right? We went and we went ahead and explored that one talk there that they gave, because we don't know how long that is going to be around, and obviously they took it down, right? So yeah, we got to figure out what's going on there, right? But I think we hit all the critical aspects of that presentation, right? And I want to move to some of the reading that I have, right? And I want to talk about, obviously we're talking about the modernism and the dialectic between modernism and fundamentalism. But of course, that has some key foundations in the 1800s, right? With some key figures, right? That we're going to discuss, right? Okay, and also we're going to read a something from the account of General Allenby and his entrance into Jerusalem. And then tomorrow, actually, you know what? Let me not do the entire show schedule now. Let me wait till we're done. And then at the end of the show, I'll tell you guys what the schedule is for the shows this week. Okay, but let me read some of this. Right, he says 2 key theories were pivotal for the development of modern secularism on a scale equal to Copernican or Newtonian revolutions, but with instead moral consequences. The first of these was Darwin's theory of evolution, which suggested that the universe could have come into existence spontaneously without the need for a divine creator. The second of these was the theories of Sigmund Freud, which provided the opportunity to question the notion of sin itself, to reject much of the traditional morality once associated with religion. And with the cultists having shaped much of the fundamentalism of modern European Christianity, from the Protestant Reformation to the evangelical movement, the marked excesses of those traditions provided them a pretext by which to reject religious tradition on the whole. Thus emerged a formative trend of modernism in the 20th century, which repudiated what were characterized as outmoded, quote-unquote, Victorian values. This network of individuals exemplified the religious nihilism, quote-unquote, of the Sabbateans by constituting the core of the new avant-garde movement, which later came to be known as modernism, which included cubism in the arts, atonality in music, and symbolism in poetry. Modernism encompassed the works of artists who rebelled against the 19th century academic and historicist traditions. Believing that earlier aesthetic conventions were outdated, it was early associated with bohemianism, which espoused unorthodox and anti-establishment political and social viewpoints, which expressed through free love, drug experimentation, unconventional styles of dress, and even voluntary poverty. The primary influence behind these developments were the Bloomsbury Group, an influential group associated with English writers and intellectuals. The group were part of an extended network which comprised.
Do you think it's the same Bloomsburg publications that exist today?
I'm
pretty sure. You know, they published the Harry Potter book.
No, this is Bloomsbury.
Berry, got it.
Yeah, Bloomsbury.
Okay,
Yeah, Bloomsbury Group, right? Bloomsbury. Right, the group were an influential part of an extended network that comprised the initiates of the Children of the Sun, a Dionysian cult comprised of the children of Britain's Round Table elite, Britain's Round Table elite. Among them were T.S. Eliot, W.H. Auden, Lewis and Edwina Mountbatten, Winston Churchill's son.
Wait, Mountbattens are the ones who were one of the big generals of colonizing India and Pakistan.
That's right. That's true. Yeah, Lord Mountbatten. And of course, there's a hilarious saga of his wife and Nehru. They wrote love letters to each other.
Supposedly, right? They were supposedly, yeah.
So Lord Mountbatten got cucked. Weird stuff. Winston Churchill's son, Randolph Churchill, Christopher Isherwood, Stephen Spencer Lytton Strachey. I'm gonna Kim Philby, Guy Burgess, Donald MacLean, Sir Oswald Mosley. Okay, that's a huge name.
Oswald Mosley was a Nazi, right?
Right. The
He
British
was one
Union.
of the husbands of one of those sisters that you talked about.
Yeah.
The
Right. They're mentioned next. Yeah. Oswald Mosley was part of the British Union of the Fascists, and then the Mitford sisters and D.H. Lawrence and Aldous Huxley. D.H. Lawrence, who was homosexual lover with Aldous Huxley. It says the Round Table was a secret society established by Cecil Rhodes, the founder of the De Beers Diamond Enterprise. Empire and the South African territory of Rhodesia. Rhodes was financed by Nathaniel Mayer Rothschild, also known as Natty de Rothschild, who became head of N.M. Rothschild and Sons, 1879. Nathaniel administered the estate of Rhodes, who in the first of 7 wills called for the formation of a secret society, quote unquote, devoted to the extension of British rule throughout the world. Known as the Round Table, Nathaniel appointed Alfred Milner to chair Rhodes' secret society. Milner then recruited a group of young men who were well-known English Freemasons, among them being Rudyard Kipling.
Oh shit!
Lord Balfour, and other Oxford College graduates.
Did you say Balfour?
Yeah.
Oh God.
Members of the group in statements recorded by the New York Times in 1902 proclaimed that they formed their secret society for the purpose of gradually absorbing the wealth of the world. A leading member of the Round Table was Lord Balfour, right? So this is how they got started with this famous Balfour Declaration. Right. So who would later serve as British Prime Minister from 1902 to 1905. Balfour also served as president from the Society for Psychical Research, where he was succeeded by American psychology and psychological warfare expert William James. James was one of the leading thinkers of the late 19th century and believed by many to be one of the most influential American philosophers, while others have labeled him the father of American psychology. William James interacted with a wide array of writers and scholars throughout his life, including Bertrand Russell, John Dewey, Walter Lippmann. By the way, we're going to get more into John Dewey's views tomorrow when we look at the Technological Society of Jacques Ellul. Walter Lippmann, who's also connected to Ellul because he wrote the ideas about manufacturing consent, and I also believe he was in Council of Foreign Relations, right? Mark Twain, Horatio Alger Jr. Okay, by the way, Mark Twain was a huge proponent of Zionism. Okay, he even went to Israel. Right, he traveled to Israel. And even calling it the Holy Land and all that type of stuff. Horatio Alger Jr., Sigmund Freud. Okay, among James' students were Theodore Roosevelt, W.E.B. Du Bois, Gertrude Stein, and Walter Lippmann. William James was a protege of French Jewish philosopher Henry Bergson, whose sister Moynia married MacGregor Mathers, a founder of the Golden Dawn. Henry Bergson was born from the Bergsons, a famous Jewish entrepreneurial family of Polish descent. Bergson, by the way, Bergson is one of the greatest modern philosophers. You guys know that? Henry Bergson? You know, he wrote Creative Evolution.
Oh, I did. Okay.
Oh, yeah. He was in the League of Nations. Bergson is huge.
Hey, Machine Lies, I just wanted to tell you a real quick story if I could. You mentioned the Rothschilds. There's a dive bar in downtown St. Pete I used to go to every Sunday back in the 90s and get my newspaper and read a beer and have a beer and read the newspaper. And there was this old queer always in there yakking things up. And I tried my best never to sit by him. And then one time there was one place at the bar next to him. So I sat there and he starts yapping at me and I'm ignoring him. And but he pulls out this bag of like jewelry, and he's smoking these cigarettos, and he's telling me about how, when I was in the Sistine Chapel, I think that's what I said. Well, they didn't let you smoke like that in the Sistine Chapel. And he said, oh, of course they did. And he pulls out a business card and it said Baron von Rothschild. He claimed to be the last American Rothschild. That he had 4 kids because he had to in order to inherit any money. But he was queer as a $3 bill, and all his kids had died. I think one committed suicide, one had a drug overdose. They had so much money they messed their lives up and stuff. But he claimed to have the second largest Fabergé egg collection behind Queen Elizabeth II. So you never know where those Rothschilds are coming from.
Yeah, that's a fascinating story.
That's all I wanted to say. Apparently, I've met a Rothschild, so I've been in touch with the Illuminati.
Right. And and this guy Bergson, his views, he thought he refuted Einstein when he wrote Creative Evolution. Because he said that Einstein didn't understand time and all these other things. And it's a fascinating look into the philosophy of time, right? And the philosophy of mind as well. But yeah, it says here, that Bergson was born from the Bergsons, a famous Jewish entrepreneurial family of Polish descent. Bergson's great grandfathers, Jamul Jakubowicz Sonnenberg, called Zbitkauer, Zbytkower. Man, that's hard to pronounce. Those are those fine German, Polish names. My wife is Polish too. Yeah, they got weird names. Going back, but the American names are chump names compared to the Polish names for sure. Was a prominent banker and a protege. Zbitkauer of Stanislaw August Poniatowski, King of Poland from 1764 to 1795. I'm butchering these names, so excuse me. The successor of August III, Jacob Frank's godfather. How about that? Maybe Jacob Frank, he may have referred to himself as the Prince of Poland. I wouldn't put it past him, even. Who retained the Baron von Hund as intimate counselor. Bergson was an early proponent of spiritual evolution, along with Max Theon, Rudolf Steiner, Sri Aurobindo. Okay, Sri Aurobindo is one of those Kala Chakra guys.
I've been to Oroville.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's it's quite dystopian. Like you have to give away 30% of your earnings and all land and stuff, like all your belongings, if you want to pertain.
Yeah, it's like a
to they call it an international township.
Interesting.
But what is the proponent of what? That's what I didn't catch that word. Creation is no, that's not what you said.
Spiritual evolution. That means that we are this idea that man is going, it's sort of related to dispensationalism and millenarianism and Sabbateanism. That man is going to go through a new dispensation, a new age. So this is where the idea of new age comes from. Right. So before there was a new age, there was this Kabbalistic dispensationalist notion of the kingdom of God. right? So all of this utopian thinking comes from a religious idea. So as we were addressing Mike earlier, we were saying, hey, what of these, scientific ideas comes from the a religious non-secular background? Well, this idea, utopianism, I mean, all over the transhumanists, that we've been reading all the time, right? That they all commonly espouse this idea, but it originally was about the kingdom of God and dispensationalism and the coming of a new age, right? Which the Jews and some of the Christians had taken the Kabbalistic notions of the Jews to say that Christ was going to reign in a worldly kingdom. The Jews had the notion of that they were going to rule on this earth, right, when the Messiah comes back, right?
Right.
So all of these notions became secularized, then put into pseudo eschatology of progress. This is all the things that we're going to talk about, and expand on Wednesday too, because this was my last presentation on progress, right, and all that. So, so this all has to do with the same concept. This is like proto progressive ideas, So obviously, Sri Aurobindo was hugely into that. Alfred North Whitehead was hugely into that process theology. The Indian yogi Sri Aurobindo was regarded by occultist Rene Guanan as an authentic representative of Indian spiritual
Rene
evolution.
Guanan, I don't even know if he's authorized to call Aurobindo a yogi, because as far as I saw everything, all the works in the museum, and he was a philosopher. I don't know, maybe a guru, I say he's a guru, but it wasn't until the quote unquote the mother figure came in that Aurobindo blew up.
Yeah, that's what he's going to talk about next. Yeah. Yeah. Here he says Aurobindo's close spiritual collaborator, Mira Richard, who came to be known as the Mother, in her 20s had studied occultism with Max Theon. Based in North Africa and France, Theon taught a Frankish tradition of sex magic, interpreted through the Hindu and Buddhist tradition of Tantra. Bergson's own philosophy, which held parallels with theosophy, put forward an alternative explanation of Darwin's mechanism of evolution, suggesting that evolution motivated by a vital impetus that can be understood as humanity's natural creative impulse.
So that's what she brought in. But I'm pretty sure, see, because they tell the story a certain way, but you have to start reading between the lines. But it's as soon as this figure shows up, well, she sees Aurobindo as you need somebody a little bit original Indian to kind of have some authority and footing. So she uses Aurobindo, and he dies even before that commune type place is built. I think he died in the 70s or early 80s. He was already gone. But she attracted all of these people from America, Germany, all over Europe. And basically people came and gave money, time, everything, to build this place. So they were clearing land and all of that. I don't know how many people, it's thousands and thousands of people. She got this operation going over there. So, now you're saying she was a student of sex magic before, go figure. It's pretty obvious, I think.
Yeah, and Sri Aurobindo promoted that himself in terms of the Kala chakra type of stuff. But yeah, it says a process theology soon influenced a number of Jewish theologians, including rabbis Max Kadushin, Milton Steinberg, and Abraham Joshua Herschel, all of whom belong to the Sabbatean Connected Jewish Theological Seminary of America, JTSA. The Jewish Theological Seminary of America was headed by English Rabbi Solomon Schurter, 1847 to 1915, the Frankist founder of the American Conservative Jewish movement, whose mentor was Zacharias Frankel. The JTSA was founded in 1901. Jacob Schiff, the Rothschilds' agent in the U.S. and a close family friend, provided it with an endowment of $500,000 and a building. Whitehead credits Bergson along with William James and John Dewey in the preface to Process and Reality. William and his brother, the famous author Henry James, were the sons of Henry James Sr., a theologian and adherent of Swedenborgianism. Henry James Sr. had been introduced to Swedenborg by Ralph Waldo Emerson, who became William's godfather. Influenced by Swedenborg, Blake and the Vedanta, Emerson was the father of American Transcendentalism, a religious and philosophical movement. The development during the late 1820s and 30s, a protest against the conventional spirituality and Unitarian doctrine taught at Harvard University. Transcendentalism begins with Emerson's 1836 essay Nature, which was heavily influenced by Swedenborg's theory of correspondences. By the way, I always thought it was interesting that Kant uses the same term, correspondence, for his correspondence theory of mind. Right? And the idea of all individual souls were part of the world soul. Okay, which Hegel borrowed, right, for the spirit of world history. Right, all this idea of the world soul was already existing. Right, when Hegel invented the idea of the spirit of world history, he simply brought the ephemeral into the notion of the world soul. That the transcendentalists,
and you're saying that this is supposedly like influenced by Vedanta, or maybe that's why they're giving the justification for the world soul or whatever they're calling it.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because Swedenborg definitely was taking some of those ideas. I mean, so so it's hard to say. Swedenborg was sort of taking like
But it's
pagan
a
ideas.
total perversion because the soul is beyond the world.
Yeah, but it's like in the 13th century, right? They came up with all these,
New Age terminology or what?
Yeah. I know. Just in the 13th century, they came up with the Vajrayana systems, right, and all of that. So that's what. So they're more drawing from those systems, right?
But even that they don't do correctly. It's like hodgepodge, whatever is serving this agenda.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, totally. And yeah, it says here then that they believed in a world soul. The Transcendentalists also believed that all people possessed a piece of the oversoul. That's a sort of Gnostic idea. Right, and thus were united as one being. Transcendentalists therefore believed that political and religious institutions ultimately corrupted individuals, preferring individualism and self-reliance. Emerson is well known as a mentor and friend of fellow Transcendentalist Henry David Thoreau, 1817 to 1862. The movement directly influenced New Thought, a spiritual movement following the teachings of Phineas Quimby. Here, hold on, let me see this. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. Hold on, folks. Yeah. Anyways, yeah, let's go on. During the late 19th century, Quimby's metaphysical healing practices mingled with mental science, quote unquote, of Warren Felt Evans, a Swedenborgian minister. Mark Baker Eddy, the founder of Christian Science, has been cited as having used Quimby as inspiration for theology. William James inherited an interest in the religion from his Swedenborgian father. James, as an important admirer of Vivekananda, I don't know if you knew that, Annapurna.
I did not know that.
Oh yeah, in his pragmatism, I think it's in Pragmatism. He actually has 2 lengthy quotes for Vivekananda. He actually quotes Vivekananda in his writings. It's some wild stuff, isn't it?
But
When you're reading, like,
Vivekananda was a Freemason, right?
oh yeah, yeah, and a student of Ramakrishna, I believe.
Who was supposedly a student of Aurobindo, if you can believe it,
Oh, okay.
or connected with, because in Auroville they have special like Sri Ramakrishna's shrine, or in that certain libraries they have his books. And see, it's not clear, it's so obfuscated, because Aurobindo was never a guru or a sage. He was a philosopher. But Ramakrishna, he's a full-fledged yogi, or he started, I think he even went abroad and teaching like the Yogananda as well. So yeah, there is a connection there, certainly. So I can't say he was a student or not, because Aurobindo is a philosopher and Ramakrishna is a yogi, or that's what he claims. And that's the teaching. Aurobindo never taught any yogic technique or anything like asana. He only gave lectures, and those were written down by the mother, I believe, and then published as books. And then she takes that as an excuse, as a justification to do whatever she's doing in his writings.
Interesting. But yeah, this guy William James, who is credited with inventing psychology, is actually influenced by Vivekananda, which is very interesting, right? And it says here he was also a member of the Theosophical Society and interested in mystical
Yeah, there.
subjects.
Yogananda also is a Theosophical Society member.
Right. It says, as well as a champion of alternative approaches to healing. James was member of the Metaphysical Society, one of the founders of the first president of the Society for Psychical Research, SPR, whose members included Arthur Conan Doyle, Lord Balfour, Bertrand Russell, John Dewey, and John Ruskin. SPR is a nonprofit organization whose stated purpose is to understand, quote, events and abilities commonly described as psychic or paranormal by promoting and supporting important research in this area to examine allegedly paranormal phenomena in a scientific and unbiased way. It was SPR which later investigated Blavatsky's mysterious Mahatma letters, which were said to appear out of thin air in 1885, declared her to be a fraud. James' research was focused on the belief inspired by mysticism that the philosophical answers to human existence could be found by giving humans the opportunity to explore the irrational. According to James, these states allowed the mystic to attain cosmic consciousness, a term first coined by Richard Maurice Buck, a Canadian psychiatrist. In his 1901 book, Cosmic Consciousness, A Study in the Evolution of the Human Mind, Maurice explored the concept which he defined as a, quote, higher form of consciousness than possessed by the ordinary man, unquote. Buck listed Swedenborg among those who had achieved such illumination, along with Buddha, Jesus, Francis Bacon, William Blake. Okay, this is what I critiqued Joseph Campbell for, right? Where he put Jesus and Ramakrishna and the Dalai Lama.
William Blake in the same line.
Yeah, it's like, it's like, what are these people smoking? I mean, but yeah, their list of enlightened figures is always hilarious. But yeah,
But I mean, have you ever spent? You must have. Have you ever spent any time with like the dirty yogi hippie type? In today's day and age, obviously, can't go in the past.
Oh yeah, 1,000,000%. I mean, they're huge in Detroit. Right?
Okay, so it's almost a competition of how crazy can you get, how out there can you get with your claims, and I don't know, man. It's like a little hysterical. I at some point I just have to be like, oh my God. I'd rather somebody was a drunkard than spend time with you, because at least the drunkard is going to be authentic. But yeah, anyway. Yeah, it's just a hysterical, like, how can I top, how can I get even more crazy and say random shit like, oh, like, what someone told me, like, oh yeah, Jesus was a pure incarnation. He had no incarnation before and after. And my God, it just, like trying to make it Vedanta type interpretation of it. But
yeah.
anyway.
Well, I mean, they sound new, but they're not new. In any of these ideas, most of them are like Gnostic, or they draw from the Kabbalah or Neoplatonism, and that's why it's important to realize the origins of a lot of these concepts.
Sabbatean Frankism, right? Like you're saying.
Yeah, theistic evolution, it heavily draws on this, on Frankism and stuff, because it was around during that time with a lot of those actors. So
Yeah.
we have to put things in perspective when we're looking at Amsterdam, when we're looking at the Jews, we're looking at the time when Spinoza was there, the time when Descartes was there. There's huge changes happening. So we have to put all of those things in perspective, and then we can realize that these ideas aren't new. They're not just a bunch of like, for example, New Age. It's been brought out as being like lighter version, but this is actually the way that they're putting the occult science out in front of people so that they can, sort of poison the well, right? So it's very serious business, right? So, despite the fact of it being, these people are being subverted, and they're being subverted with some of their most deepest level, on some of their ethical level, where they, some of these people are becoming vegans and different things. I mean, right? So, it's
So
mattering.
I believe Hitler himself was a vegan.
Yeah, maybe, but it goes to his spiritual beliefs. He was already influenced by all of these Hindu ideas and all this stuff. I mean, all the way down the path, right? Because, so when we figure out that, these people were deeply involved in this stuff in the 1800s, William Blake was quoting Vivekananda again.
Right.
Henry David Thoreau was quoting
Hitler comes along.
Henry David Thoreau was quoting the Gita, right? He was quoting the Gita. Henry David Thoreau. So we have to put things in perspective when all these ideas have already influenced. Have been there for 100 years, right?
But then Hitler comes along, and I'm not sure who exactly, but I read certain translations, because he gets some people to translate the Vedic books into German.
Right.
And then from German to English. And I don't know, it seemed like he was looking for Shambhala or something like some source of unlimited power from occult perspective. But I wanted to ask you, what this Mahatma letters, what is that? Do you know what that is with Blavatsky?
I don't know, but they took credit for teaching Gandhi Hinduism and even giving him his a copy of the Gita. By the way,
Blavatsky did?
the Theosophical Society does.
Oh shit. I mean, Gandhi is no saint himself, but damn. I thought the Mahatma letters was a secret doctrine. That's what I thought, which is a bunch of bullshit as well that she wrote. Saying that, yeah, she said she stayed in the caves of the Himalayas with some Brahmins or sages, and that was a secret doctrine was given to her from there.
Yeah, it's definitely weird. But yeah,
Denise, sorry, I was just gonna say, Denise says, new thought, new age, old cage. I like that.
yeah, and yeah. So okay, so here we go. It says Buck hypothesized that the next stage of human development or cosmic consciousness is slowly beginning to appear will eventually spread throughout all of humanity. James understood the cosmic consciousness, quote unquote, to be a collective consciousness. Okay, another idea from Neoplatonism and the Kabbalah. A large reservoir of consciousness which manifests itself in the minds of men remains intact after the dissolution of the individual. It may retain traces of life history of its individual emanation. Cecil Rhodes was inspired in his vision for the British Empire by John Ruskin, the leading English art critic of the Victorian era. John's father, John James Ruskin, helped to develop his son's interest in Romanticism, sharing a passion for the works of Lord Byron, Shakespeare, and especially Walter Scott. John's mother, Margaret Ruskin, was an evangelical Christian who taught him to read the King James Bible, whose language, imagery, and stories had profound and lasting effect on his writing. John Ruskin was unanimously appointed the first Slade Professor of the Fine Art at Oxford University in August.
Slave? SLAVE? Slave professor?
SLADE. Yeah.
Oh, Slade. Got
Yeah,
it.
Slade. Yeah. Yeah. Where he delivered his inaugural lecture in 1870, stating, quote, the art of any country is the exponent of the social and political virtues, unquote. Cecil Rhodes cherished a longhand copy of the lecture, believing that it supported his own view of the British Empire. Okay, John Dewey had a lot of John Dewey had a lot of very similar ideas as well. But yeah, go ahead.
But Rudyard Kipling and John Ruskin was later known as Ruskin Bond, if I'm not mistaken. But these two were apologetics for colonialism, and their books were widely distributed in India during colonial. Like that was part of the education as a sort of brainwash, right? It's like, oh, look, basically like we are the savage and they come to tame us. Therefore, British good, colonialism good, and that's making a revival in the alt-right community. Is I guess that they're all like now fanboys for technology and progress, but it's the same vein. Like, oh, you should be proud of British colonial history. They're saying you should. Like, to me, the average Brit had nothing to do with colonialism. They themselves were highly oppressed by the same people that came and colonized the other parts of the world. But the alt-right now is saying that the Brits should own colonialism, that's like some, they're bringing it back, like Ruskin Bond and Rudyard Kipling's view that, this is a savage world and we're here to tame it, to help it from itself. And I mean, today, like the alt right will put clips of like whatever chaotic things happening in India or the third world or something like that, or white girls coming over and getting raped and all that. But to justify, like, see, look at these savages, you know, like look what they do, you know, be proud of your heritage of civilizing, essentially.
Yeah, and also Ruskin wrote, I like my girls from 10 to 16, allowing 17 or 18 as long as they're not in love with anybody but me. I've got some darlings 8, 12, 14 just now with my pig
Bro.
Wagina here, 12, who fetches my wood and is learning to play my bells.
What?
So the guy's a sicko. I mean, but yeah, that's a little
Oh,
bit of that for today. You know what I mean? We're gonna move on to John Allenby, and we're gonna talk about evangelical ideas later. But the main reason I read that was to look at the modernist fundamentalist debate, right? That arises in the 1900s, right? When we get to the 1900s, right? And we look at you know, from Darby to Schofield and all the things that happened afterwards, right? When they established the Schofield Bible in the 1900s, right? The same time when they were doing the Balfour Declaration, right? Why all of these events are related, right? To some of those key figures like Cecil Rhodes and Lord Balfour, right? And some of those other figures, right? But here's another key figure, General Allenby, right? How many people know about General Allenby and his entrance into Jerusalem? You know, they have a video of it.
I didn't know about that.
They
But
have a
you
video.
did know that Kipling wrote Jungle Book, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm well aware of that. But you know, his influence from Swedenborg is interesting. His influence from the occult is very interesting, right? That Rudyard Kipling was very much influenced by the occult, right?
Yeah, that Jungle Book entirely is full of occult symbolism.
Oh yeah, yeah, it's got it all throughout there. Yeah, definitely.
Not to mention also like this kind of, I don't know, he was, you know, like I guess they didn't have TV, and kind of fashionable for Brits or high class Brits abroad to like have this romanticized view of the East or India or whatever, you know. It's just, that's there, but it's disguising the heavy symbolism within.
Yeah. Yeah, well, check this out. It's on Jerusalem Story, the JerusalemStory.com. General Allenby's entrance into Jerusalem, 1917. General Edmund Allenby's entry into Jerusalem through the Jaffa Gate on December 11th, 1917 is captured here in rare video footage from the British Imperial War Museum. The footage, while silent, is unusual in that it includes and depicts the populace insofar as they were out on the streets to witness this moment. This too makes it historically significant. In World War I, Allenby led the British Empire's Egyptian Expeditionary Force (EEF) during the Sinai and Palestine campaign against the Ottoman Empire. In the conquest of Palestine, Jerusalem was the third city conquered, preceded by Beersheba on October 31st and Gaza November 7th. But the December conquest of Jerusalem, although not the end of the campaign, was nonetheless pivotal. Allenby was the first Christian to control Jerusalem in centuries. In fact, was reflected in Allenby's reportedly saying at the time, the wars of the Crusades are now complete. Let me repeat that. Allenby was the first Christian to control Jerusalem in centuries, a fact that was reflected in Allenby reportedly saying at the time, quote, the wars of the Crusades are now complete. Phrasing that was subsequently parroted by the British Press and Information Department. The British conquest of Jerusalem marking the beginning of an occupation, would prove to be a fateful turning point in the trajectory of the city, as one historian recounting of this event described it. The British government was, of course, concerned about its reputation and planned a propaganda coup, which would help to establish the British right to rule the city. There is nothing quite so suggestive of sheer power as the conspicuous refraining from existing and displaying it. In their preparations for the conquest of the city, the British also wanted to present themselves as contrasting with the behavior of their enemies. What was particular in mind was the case of Jerusalem was the behavior of the German Kaiser 20 years earlier. On a state visit, had ridden into the city on a white horse through a section of the city wall which had been demolished, especially for him. So both of these actions, the horse and the demolition, had to be avoided, as was the hint of violence in the city, for these were the behavior traits of the Allies had particularly affixed to Turkish and German reputations. General Allenby came to Jerusalem on December 11th, a fortnight before Christmas, 2 days after Jewish feast of Hanukkah, which was the day of the city's surrender, to make his ceremonial entry. Anyways, there's a little bit of information there. I'm not going to read all of this. But yeah, General Allenby in 1917 declared that the Crusades have reached their conclusion, and the country of Britain used a similar propaganda, and obviously the Likud and the Leahy and all of those terrorist gangs, they bombed the King David Hotel, and they forced the British to leave. Right, and in 1947, they sought to establish the country of England. I mean, the country of Israel. Sorry, with the UN, right, and not with England, right, not being a sort of part of the colonial expansion of the Britain people, right. But yeah, there's a little bit of history there, right, and it's very much important, right, for the whole, aspect of Christian Zionism, right. But yeah, we'll be closing this out here. We sort of ran that one into the ground, right? We'll be back on Sunday in an entire week. Okay, we'll do another special Judaism where we'll continue these readings, right? And we'll also look at a presentation by James Perloff on Christian Zionism, right? That will put finally into perspective all of these major points that we've been laying down, right? So we'll have another small reading. Okay, look at a major YouTube presentation, right, by Perloff on Christian Zionism. All right. Okay, and that'll be that'll conclude this series, which we'll also look at a writing of Malcolm X on Zionism. So many things we didn't get to today, but we'll have to do them in a week on Sunday. Tomorrow we'll be back doing a special on Elul, right? So we'll be doing Elul tomorrow. Okay, we'll be coming back. We're on the 3rd chapter now in Elul, the Technological Society, right? We still have ways to go while reading that book. Right, Wednesday we'll do a lecture on progress and look at Elul, his interview on the French station. Right? Okay, Thursday we'll read more Elul. Right? Friday we'll figure out some type of presentation, okay, that we may do. Possibly we may bring back our music show. Saturday we'll do another stream. Right, Friday night we'll either have open panel. Saturday we'll do a stream, continuing our Wednesday stream. Right, Sunday night we'll be back with the Judaism, okay, special. Right, so we'll be streaming this week. Right, little 3-hour streams. Okay, we'll do a little longer stream on Wednesday and Saturday. So that's the schedule for this week. Right, next week we'll only appear Wednesday and Saturday again. Right. We'll continue our presentations just on the Lul. We're going to tone down the rhetoric after this week. Okay, but we're going to hit them on all levels this week. Relentless. Slaughter. Of all ideas and opinions. And of course, we have Spooky Saturdays. A very haunting Spooky Saturday for you guys, right? So that's about it. Any closing statements you guys want to make? Blessings, right? Of course, it's always a pleasure to have the very wise and talented Sister Annapurna on the panel, the very intelligent and wise Rock E on the panel. Blessings to you, sir, and the humble, and talented and very deep thinker, Reddington out here. You're in blessings, sir.
Thank you. I look forward to it. It's funny you're streaming now at like 4 a.m. my time. So it's like a nice way to. Well, I can't sleep past that anyway. So I wake up and yeah, it's nice to hear you streaming before I begin my day in this chaotic city. Yeah, that I want to thank you for that. And I don't know if they'll let me get in, but I'm trying to access this library to get some of that. Like, because there's letters from Lord Mountbatten, and then there's shit. I can't remember the other guy's name. But there's letters that they sent to the British Raj. Not Nehru, but another British, like one of these generals that they send to govern India. And there's letters that they write back to the British Raj on how to decimate the country and their struggles on why they're not able to or what to do. And there's one in particular that calls for the banning of marijuana, saying that we're not going to be able to sell liquor to these people without it, but also they seem kind of. So it was like, well, they're not desperate enough. Like, okay, if a guy doesn't have food to eat, he's chewing some ganja and he's all right. He's ready for his daily labor, and he has endurance. But it kind of like saying that he wanted to force them to be desperate. And the only way to do that would be to sort of ban marijuana. And then there's a systematic treatises on dismantling the culture. Let's see if they'll allow me to go in and read. But I would like to get some of those letters in my hand and just read them rather than reading other or looking at other people saying what they say on the internet, But yeah, let's see if I can access them. Thank you for having me, as always.
Of course, blessings, sis.
Maybe take some pictures of relevant pages.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, they might. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll sneak it. In a thought experiment, I'm in India. He asked if I was in Singapore. I hated Singapore, y'all. It's like so dystopian. I just had to say a piece here, but they don't have it's your face is your entry. So I try to exempt it. I always exempt a photo in the United States via immigration and all that. You have that right, but you don't have that right in most other countries. So you just go in, it scans your face, it scans your passport. You have to keep your thumbprint, your biometric. And then a little door opens, like double doors, like in the subway. Like the doors are so low, like in the New York subway, like you can jump it, I guess. I mean, no one's trying, but it's just two sets of double doors and a security guard. and the computer says, "Welcome to Singapore," and then boom, just some little door opens and you go in, and it's just highly surveilled, yo. It's just so highly surveilled. I found it to be so expensive and kind of fake smart city vibes. And I mean, they're really proud that they got a lot of trees and stuff, but I don't know who in the hell can afford to live there. As an American, I found it expensive, and a really interesting thing is, like, Indians in India, they'll be spitting on the road and they'll be jaywalking, and they don't give a shit. Like, they're littering on the road. But in Singapore, they're all in line. Like, everybody's in line. And I know they're Indian because they're speaking, like, mostly is South Indian people out there. And I'm like, dang, like, everybody is in line. Like, in India, like, if you're a girl, like, people stare. You know what I'm talking about, TML. Even if you have your head covered, like, people are trying to stare, or whatever, harass. But they don't do that over there. And I think stealing, you die or something. Like, things like drugs and stealing is punishable by death. And it's all touted as like hyper safe due to that. But I just found it hyper controlled. And one last observation: over here in India, like, people are angry a lot. Like, it just in general, like, it's just like open anger, people just being angry at each other. Raw. It's kind of raw. I mean, that's changing. Like, you can't even hang up your clothes to dry in the apartments anymore. Like, that's against the HOA now, God. But anyway, it's kind of raw. But in Singapore, it's just dead people. I mean, Jesus. Like, there was a lady I bought some food from, and there's a rate me survey right there. Like, you had to click a button. And I would just hate to be in the service industry of any kind over there, because they're just like, like almost like a social credit score. Like, please rate me good. Please, please, please don't give me a bad rating. And I mean, like, is it that far behind China? That I'm not saying it is China, but like, damn, And it's everybody here in India and a lot of Americans tout Singapore as some kind of utopia. Like, oh, they did it. They made a garden city, and they're so efficient and all that. Yeah, but I just found it to be highly dystopian and very cloudy. Even out here, very, very cloudy. No sun visible at all. But okay, sorry for that long rant. Thank you for having me. I appreciate y'all.
Yeah, blessings, Anna. Thank you so much for being here.
Easy.
I don't know if Rocky's even here. But yeah, India. I mean, maybe things will change one day. We'll be able to go to India, even though we were born in Pakistan. But I think it would be a problem if I showed up there right now.
No, you can come, but they have a separate line for Pakistan.
Spying on you, yeah.
All Pakistanis have a separate line. Yeah, but you're an American citizen, right? But I guess still, there's no guarantee.
Because I was born in Pakistan, so I think that would be a little bit different of a situation. But yeah,
they're cammed up out here in India, man. There's like CCTV every fucking inch of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rocky, are you there? Blessings, sir. I don't think Rocky is there. Reddington, do you got anything to say to these people? I think maybe he just left his computer on there.
It's kind of SOP, sort of. But anyways, you said he said that the Crusades were complete?
Oh yeah, General Allenby. Yeah, it's a famous quote. Yeah.
Dang,
There's
son. Does that mean the Christians? What does he mean? Like the Christians took over Jerusalem or something?
something like that. Yeah, to imply something like that. Yeah.
Wondering how many Jays were there at the time.
Yeah, short-lived takeover, I guess.
Short-lived, yeah.
Like some 30 years they took it over. That's it. I mean,
just a little blip.
Just a little blip of time. I mean, but yeah.
Complete. It's an interesting statement. And I get whatever. I guess it doesn't matter too much now.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I was doing a Cecil.
Doing a Cecil.
Pulling a Cecil. Where's he been? I haven't seen him in a while.
Well, don't summon him now.
Yeah.
Somewhere in Idaho or whatever.
Yeah. Well, what do you got to say to these people, sir? Blessings.
I'm just trying to look into some stuff. Like, it's way better to be away from the city, so you'd probably be able to sleep better outside of the city. Less electro pollution and stuff.
Yeah.
Need to figure out some things. That's all.
It's not even, I mean, what city are you talking about, Red?
Like any
Just
city. Any city.
Yeah.
Lot
But
of
like the mega cities, like, you know, Mumbai is a mega city. Mexico City is a mega city. I think it's like above 20 million.
all the I mean the more technology is probably not good for health.
Yeah, but
Radiation and stuff.
massification, that's it. Massification of they become machine-like is what I was trying to get at. The people
Yeah, we're
seem
gonna
like
go.
ants
Right.
in the city.
Yeah, we're gonna be getting hardcore into those subjects too. We still have the latter part of technological slavery. We have tons of writings. I have tons of writings to unveil to you guys over the next couple of days about evolution and progress and those different notions. So yeah, we're gonna start off pretty slow, but we'll get moving and grooving pretty quickly here, and be getting into some pretty abstract notions, but also relaying it all to metaphysics and theology, and also political theology, and different topics, right? So we'll give a considerable amount of reflection on different concepts and themes, right? Especially the translation of two themes, which is reason and freedom, into two other themes, right? Which is equality and progress in the death of liberalism, right? And these are notions that we will be constantly unpacking over the next few days. And yeah, Rocky, do you have anything to say to these people, sir? Blessings.
Well, don't forget to watch that video I put in chat.
For sure. Yeah.
That
Yeah, the one you put
shows the church fathers, the so-called church fathers, all a bunch of made-up bullshit. Okay. Yeah, I think we're living in a different eschatology. The whole reason for the Zionist movement is, they chose that religion those fake Jews chose that so they can be called the chosen people. And we're living in Satan's little season of Revelations 20, 7 through 9. This is something new to me. The last 2 years I've been researching it. History is a big lie. There's a couple channels you can check out. This one, Jason Jack, he's pretty good. This Jason Jack that made this video, he's a plastic surgeon. So he's not a dumb motherfucker. And he does a lot of research. And just check it out.
I know a lot of stupid plastic surgeons, Rocky, just saying.
Everybody's got an agenda.
Yeah.
All right, folks. Well, that's it for us. Blessings.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you
Namaste.
for being here. And namaste, sis. And let's bring this out here with some music. And yeah, we got some other stuff. I got some other secret things that I'm gonna unveil, but we'll figure out where that goes. But not yet, but yeah, we got so much resources and materials to work with. I don't know when we'll be done. I mean, just this Buddhism series, I mean, it's probably gonna go another 50 parts. So I mean, we still haven't gotten into Shangzhou, so it's gonna be quite a while before we actually make it. And if we lose the channel, we'll go ahead and pop up somewhere else, either on Rumble or Odyssey. So stay tuned for that. Stay tuned to the Cyber Caliphate channel. If you guys want to figure out, this video will not be on this channel available. It will only be available on the Cyber Caliphate channel, right? So we're going to, move it to that channel, right? And it's already available there right now, right? And here is the first part of the series. Right, so go ahead and indulge yourself in the full series. If you're wondering what happened, the first part of the series, this link right here will take you to the review of the entire Zionism debate between Andrew Wilson and Apostate Prophet. And then you can blast off from there, contextualize the issues and understand the themes. And then you can familiarize yourself with some of the deeper concerns there of the origins of Zionism, the treatment of Jews in Europe, and some of the other ideas, of how Zionists came to fruition, and also Christian Zionism, right? The origins of that. But yeah, we also have lots of music to share with you guys, right? So we'll come back with some music as well. We have some music specials available on the Cyber Caliphate channel. You guys go check out, But yeah, blessings. Thank you guys for being here. And yeah, we'll be back tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern for you guys. I'll make a link sometime tomorrow morning. But yeah, thank you guys. Thank you for being here. Blessings.
Okay. Good night.
Easy.
It was 2 in the morning, June 94. Some ass men came and left some slugs in my front door. Too close to home, it's time to call it quits. Wife threatens to leave. My daughter's throwing fits. What's the plan? The situation's out of hand. So I pick up the cordless and proceed to call my man. What up, black? Some niggas pulled up in the act and tried to bring the ruckus with a premeditated attack. Yo, fuck that. I ain't going out like that. Disrespect my home, I put some niggas on their back.
True that, kid. Give it a minute, yo. Just wait.
To top it all off, they had out-of-state plates. Yo, who's these outsiders? Trying to make some noise. They better finish what they started, cause my squadron destroys. I'm pissed. These niggas is number one on my hit list. And I won't be satisfied until I see their death certificates. Retaliation, with a bit of hesitation. I'ma let these niggas sleep, then proceed with their assassination.
I don't know why niggas is trying to bring it to me, but if they want my life, they gotta come take it from me. Ties between my family, nothing I know is stronger. I'm in too deep and I can't hold my breath any longer. I don't know why niggas is trying to bring it to me, but if they want my life, they gotta come take it from me. Ties between my family, nothing I know is stronger. I'm in too deep and I can't hold my breath any longer. We gave it a week, then decided to make a move. We wanted the niggas to think that everything was cool, that they got away with something, assuming they got over. Loaded the trunk with explosives and pulled off in the Range Rover. Rolled on they block like 5-0 raid the drug spot. Set the timer and turned their spot into a vacant lot. Looked in my rear view, saw flames and heard screams. Was aware of the fact I killed some innocent human beings. What I guess it was their time, cause we all gotta go. I took care of my business, kid, that's all that I know. At least that's what I thought, until I got home. I walked through the door and saw a note by the phone. It said, honey, I'm at the hospital. Let me explain. Kanye went to visit
visit a friend in the building, went up in flames. Come as soon as you can. They don't think she's gonna make it. She's on life support. I need your hair, I can't take it. I thought to myself, nah, couldn't be. Not my own flesh and blood. I refused to believe. But when I got to the hospital, they said it was too late. They said she didn't make it. My wife was irate, screaming like she was possessed by a demon, yelling fuck the world and life, what's the meaning? I asked her where it happened. She said down the block, down the street, around the corner from that drug spot. You mean the building on 53rd and 5th? She said, yeah, how did you know? An unfortunate lucky guess. I ran into the bathroom and almost threw up, cause that was the spot. Raid the drug spot, set the timer, and turn the spot into a vacant lot. Looked in my rear view, saw flames and heard screams. Was aware of the fact I killed some innocent human beings. But I guess it was their time, cause we all gotta go. I took care of my business, kid, that's all that I know. At least that's what I thought, until I got home. I walked through the door and saw a note by the phone. It said, honey, I'm at the hospital, let me explain. Tanya went to visit a friend in the building, went up in flames. Come as soon as you can, they don't think she's gonna make it. She's on life support, I need your hair, I can't take it. I thought to myself, nah, couldn't be. Not my own flesh and blood, I refused to believe. But when I got to the hospital, they said it was too late. They said she didn't make it. My wife was irate, screaming like she was possessed by a demon, yelling fuck the world and life, what's the meaning? I asked her where it happened. She said down the block, down the street, around the corner from that drug spot. You mean the building on 53rd and 5th? She said, yeah, how did you know? An unfortunate lucky guess. I ran into the bathroom and almost threw up, cause that was the spot me and my man blew up. Oh shit, what the fuck am I gonna do? Oh shit, what the fuck am I gonna do?
moment happened, I reached new heights. It's amazing how evil the world can be behind a beautiful face. Summertime murders when he get erased. My friends say MF, you're in outer space, but I have to blast off. I hate this place. I mean, I love it so much, but it's going to waste. Mind control, people don't know what's real. Programmed to kill, so we reach for steel. American hunger, everyone is a meal. Fuck napkins, thieves wipe their mouth with sleeves. United States on its own, young it feeds. Born to starve because of others we greed. Trapped like lab raps, causing a craze. But I want out this maze. I sing for the trees, the birds, the bees, the all-seeing eye, floating in the sky. A satellite named Horus. This is for the sun, the moon, the stars. We are watched from far by the all-seeing eye. A satellite named Horus. This is for life, for death. Separated by one breath. Yes, we're blessed until all has left. Monitored by Horus. Tell me, is there a way out? I walked through the doors of hell. It said stay out, I didn't. Fell even deeper, trap floor was hitting. Programmed to eat fruit that's forbidden. Mankind don't live up to its name. Not kind at all, devour their brothers. Cry at funerals, kiss their mothers. Backstabbing for knives they're grabbing. Loyal to enemies are lies, they have them. I boil as a mic fiend, knowing I'm censored. Feds do stakeouts at my concerts, hoping I cross lines cause I'm a lifer. Corrected my wrongs, turn uplifter. Divine is comedy, from pain come laughter. With a clean slate, I choose to die with. While in park, I look up in sky. This is for the trees, the birds, the bees, the all-seeing eye, floating in the sky. A satellite named Horus. This is for the sun, the moon, the stars. We are watched from far by the all-seeing eye. A satellite named Horus. This is for life, for death. Separated by one breath. Yes, we're blessed until all has left. Monitored by Horus. Up in the sky. Keep your head up.
Savage. Wild, not cultivated. Barbaric, not civilized. Fierce and ferocious. S-A-V-A-G-E. Savage.
Yeah. Yeah, yo. When I mindstorm a rhyme forms from out of dark clouds, then I jot down deep mysteries about space and the aborigines. Compose symphonies, thoughts of Moses to Epiphanies. Caesars, the desert eagles, the weapon for the people. My raps is beauty, so I'ma always be before the E and the A and the U. Jesus, with a bottle of Grey Goose, took off my gray suit. Now I'm reborn, re-strong and reform. You devils be gone, this style belongs to the stained glass medallion. Flames dance around them. Some say he's the same as the Malcolm. Came advanced in volumes, now witness behind the stained glass album.
There's no quiz in the fact that Holocaust has risen. I stiffen, the best rapper isn't. Wu-Tang commission business, women audition. Aerospace is chicken, dope hidden rappers give in. Listen, there's no quiz in the fact that Holocaust has risen. I stiffen, the best rapper isn't. Wu-Tang commission business, women audition. Aerospace is chicken, dope hidden rappers give in. Listen, Godzilla's the king of all monsters. Great your bonkers, secret space launchers. Boxers and daughters at my concert. I conquer doctors, gangsters haunter. Dollars and honors, horror hunters ponder. Prehistoric lobsters and rap rosters, robbers, flying saucers, stronger sponsors, killing posters. I explode dishwashers, rhymes like armed Navy helicopters over foreign waters. Peace to Cookie Monster, I comatose watchers who don't moniker. Mr. Commodore 64, the monitor auditor, blockbuster, too popular for gossipers. Gobbler of astrologers, omnivore orbiter, gravity softener, explosion vomiter, an astronomer who used a barometer, binocular to kill a biographer. There's no quiz in the fact that Holocaust has risen. I stiffen, the best rapper isn't. Wu-Tang commission business, women audition. Aerospace is chicken, dope hidden rappers give in. Listen, there's no quiz in the fact that Holocaust has risen. I stiffen, the best rapper isn't. Wu-Tang commission business, women audition. Aerospace is chicken, dope hidden rappers give in. Listen,